Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the launch of Nighthawking by Russ Thomas. I'm Vic Watson, one half of Bay Tales. The other half, Simon Buick, is behind the scenes doing the really important tech stuff. Tonight, we're here to celebrate the publication of the fabulous Nighthawking, the second book in the DS Adam Tyler series by Russ Thomas. There is a chat button at the bottom of the screen, so if you would like to chat with the people in the audience or with our panelists, please do. But we would ask you to respect our guests while they're doing readings or answering questions. There is also a Q&A button somewhere along the bottom if you're watching on a laptop. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Russ about Nighthawking or about his debut, Firewatching, please do drop them in there for us and I will endeavour to ask them for you. Now to the main man, Russ Thomas. Russ was born in Essex, raised in Berkshire, and now lives in Sheffield. After a few proper jobs, among them pot washer, optician's receptionist, supermarket warehouse operative, call centre telephonist, and storage salesman, he discovered the joys of book selling, where he could talk to people all day long about books. His highly acclaimed debut novel, Firewatching, the first in the series, was published in February 2020, just in time for lockdown number 1. It was subsequently chosen as Waterstones Thriller of the Month. And Nighthawking, the sequel, is released today. So everybody, huge round of applause for Mr. Russ Thomas.
Hello.
Hello, congratulations.
Hi, Vic. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. I'm just going to launch into my first question, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure, go for it.
So, where did the enigmatic Adam Tyler come from? Did anyone in particular inspire you to create him?
Yes, I guess so. Well, yes and no. He's not particularly based on anyone in particular, but I suppose I wanted to create a hero that I could bring back and would have that kind of longevity. So I suppose the closest I would say would be something like Jack Reacher. I'm a big fan of the Lee Child books. Obviously, Adam Tyler is nothing like Jack Reacher at all. I'm not even sure they'd got on very well, but then Tyler doesn't get on with anyone very well. So yeah, but yeah, I wanted to do, obviously, I hope I'm still going in 28, 30 books time, but probably not. But yeah, I wanted to do something with a character who would keep coming back, who was a bit of an outlier, someone who wasn't kind of one of the pack, and obviously also was gay. That was a big part of the character. I wanted a main character who was gay, and kind of started there. It then took ages and ages to get his character just right. I mean, it really did take so many redrafts, and that was the thing I got stuck on most, largely because I think I was trying to make him too like me. Yeah, I'm not that interesting. So yeah, it was good. He eventually came onto the page, and he had a few name changes and then kind of evolved from there.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to ask you now to launch into your reading from Nighthawking, if you don't mind. But okay. I will give the audience a little heads up. If you would like to win a book bundle from Simon & Schuster, you will need to listen very, very carefully to to Russ's reading of Adam.
I wish I was Adam.
6 minutes.
He's much better looking than I am. So here we go.
Think of you. Right, go for it.
Now, I've not read this bit before, so you have got a bit of an exclusive, and because it's slightly darker in here than I expected, I'm going to have to put the reading specs on.
Nothing.
This scene is taken, I'm not reading right from the start, but you don't need to know a great deal other than a body has been dug up. Is that saying too much? Something's been discovered. Yeah, obviously a body now, said it. And Mina, who is back from the first book, has been called to the scene of the crime. She's been asked to kind of help out at the scene of the crime. It's not her scene, but she's helping out one of the other characters. So she's just arrived, and this is where it starts. The arm's just lying there, looking like it belongs in one of those zombie B-movies Gulam was always so obsessed with when they were teenagers, as though it's just crawled its way out of a grave. She shivers in the wind and pulls her jacket tight. She can't smell the body from this distance. She's not sure how much it would smell anyway, given the desiccation of the flesh on the skeleton. It's in an advanced state of decay and would appear to have been buried for a while. But there's a fecund earthiness to the air that's unusually turning her stomach. This isn't her first body, and she finds the buried ones are usually a bit easier to deal with than the fresh ones. The scenes where life has so recently been snuffed out that the arterial blood is still dripping down the walls. But there's something about this one that's bothering her. She wonders if it's the location. The Botanical Gardens has always been one of her favourite places in the city. She used to come here when she was studying for her police entrance exam and sit on the grass with all the students, reading and drinking and snogging, imagining a life she never had a chance to experience. Of course, the gardens feel different at this time of year. The evergreens are still beautiful, but the deciduous trees so recently turned to flame are already sporting bare branches. And this part especially, this walled inner garden full of sparse flower beds, feels bleak and dead, even at the tail end of autumn. The only real sign of life is the sound of children screaming and shouting in the schoolyard on the other side of the red brick garden wall. The arm's obscene. It looks as though it has been planted there, quite literally. Maybe it has. Maybe it's just an arm. There doesn't have to be a whole body underneath, does there? She can't decide if that would be better or worse, though. If it is just an arm, then maybe the person it belongs to is still alive out there somewhere, although that seems a bit unlikely. But if it is just an arm, it's going to make their job so much harder. The man standing next to her is shaking. He's wearing the grubby overalls that mark him as one of the volunteers who helped tend the garden. He can't seem to take his eyes off the thing, but that's hardly surprising. Can you tell me how you found it, please, Mr. Carver? He doesn't answer straight away. Mr. Carver? What? Oh, sorry, love. It's just a shock. I understand. I'm sorry I have to ask you this now, but it's important we go over it all while it's fresh. She balks at her choice of words. The only thing fresh around here is the wind, unless it changes direction. His eyes stay fixed on the wasted limb. I did tell the other policewoman. If you could just go over it with me, please, Mr. Carver. He still fails to meet her eye. I'm not sure how much I can tell you. I came in at the usual time, about 8:30, I suppose. I do the early shift so Alice can see to her husband before she leaves the house, and Mina cuts him off. Just what happened today, if you don't mind. Oh, sure, sorry. Well, like I said, it were around 8:30. I came into the Marnock garden and there it was. You always come here first, at the start of your shift? Carver meets her eyes for the first time. I like it here. It's always peaceful. But the garden's open at 8, is that right? Could someone have been here before you? I can't say for sure, but most people that early are just passing through. The volunteers don't start till 10, and we're mostly working on the Mediterranean garden at the moment, which is more over that way. So no, I doubt anyone came into this area before me. I mean, they couldn't have, could they? Or they'd have found. He trails off and gestures at the arm. So you saw it straight away, as soon as I came through the wall. This is what Mina had wanted to follow up. ABC. Assume nothing, believe nobody, check everything. He glances back at the entranceway into the smaller garden. I don't mean to contradict you, Mr. Carver, but I can't see the entrance very well from here. That tree blocks the view. Carver glances across to the entrance. I don't know then. I suppose I must have walked in a ways and then seen her. Her? What? What makes you say her? We don't know who the arm belongs to yet. It looks like a woman, doesn't it? Small. Okay, go on. So you walked into the garden a bit. Carver huffs and splutters. Look, I don't know. Why are you asking me all this? It's just routine, sir. It's important we know where you've trodden. Carver thinks for a moment and studies the grass. I walked in along the path there, I think. I sometimes sit on the bench for a spell to gather my thoughts, but I didn't get that far. I must have glanced across, and that's when I saw her. Mina makes a note to tell Jill about the increased area of potential contamination. And did you know what it was, or did you have to move closer to see? I might be getting on a bit to you, love, but I'm not that far gone. Mina smiles to herself. David Carver can't be much over 50, if that. All right, Mr. Carver. Look, it's just Dave, all right. Okay, Dave. We've got your contact details. Maybe you should get yourself home, eh? You've had a nasty shot. Yeah, I'm all right, love. You don't have to treat me like an invalid. But he glances again at the severed arm and swallows. Mina steers him back along the path so he doesn't tread anywhere he hasn't already. What will happen to her now then? Or him, or whatever? Well, we don't know for sure. There's a whole body there. It might just be the arm. She sees Carver wince at her feeble attempt to reassure him. But if there is, there'll be an autopsy, and then we'll make sure she gets a decent burial. Carver nods. Well, that's good then, isn't it? That's something. I think we'll leave it there for now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. For those of you at home, don't forget there's a Q&A button along the bottom of your bar. So if you want to ask Russ anything about the excerpt he's just read, the new book, or even fire watching, please do drop it in there. But like I say, I'm going to be asking you a question very shortly about the excerpt Russ has just read for your chance to win a book bundle. So I'd like to introduce our first guest now, Russ, and it is Kate Rhodes. Kate Rhodes is the best-selling crime author of the Hell Bay series set in the Isles of Scilly. She set out as a poet before turning to a life of crime. She now combines her work as Royal Literary Fellow at Cambridge University with writing. Her latest book, Pulpit Rock, was released earlier this month. So please, everyone, give a huge round of applause for the lovely Kate Rhodes. Welcome.
Hi.
You're still on mute. I've just asked to unmute you there, Kate.
Lovely. Am I still muted or can you hear me?
You're back. Hi, Kate.
Oh,
Thank you for coming.
Great. Oh, no, it's an absolute pleasure, Russ. As you know, I'm a huge fan of your work.
Oh,
I really think you're just writing absolutely brilliantly. So huge congratulations. I mean, I just thought Fire Watching was just such an amazingly accomplished first novel. I wish mine had been half as good, to be fair. Really, really good. So congratulations to you. Yeah, I mean, I've just got a really simple question for you tonight, actually, which is, I guess...
Believe you.
Yeah, I think it's simple anyway. I guess there are some subjects when I'm kind of making a plan for my next book, when I kind of think, maybe I'll steer clear of that concept or that theme. And I just wondered what that theme was for you, whether there was a taboo subject that you will just never, ever allow yourself to write about.
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I suppose the writer in me wants to say no, that there shouldn't be anything, and that if it's done in the right way, you should be able to write about anything. But yeah, there are definitely subjects I think I don't particularly want to write about, and also things that I think maybe I'm not qualified to, or don't have enough information about, and demand that you do it justice. So the one thing that comes to mind was, while I was writing Fire Watching, a lot of the scandal broke around South Yorkshire Police and the grooming situation in Rotherham, and also it was about the time of the inquest into the Hillsborough disaster, and I think I'm right in saying there's still a bit in Fire Watching where I refer to the fact that South Yorkshire Police have been having a bit of a rough time of it lately, and that's why there's quite a lot of worry about the media being involved and stuff. But I didn't want to specifically name what it was, because I felt, well, without doing those subjects just need entire books to themselves, really. And for the purposes of entertainment, I'm not sure that I would feel comfortable writing about like maybe one day, but
Mm.
yeah, I think
Mm.
in a sort of more general way,
Mm.
subjects in general, I don't think there's anything I wouldn't necessarily do. I don't know.
Oh,
Cruelty
I'm
to animals,
impressed.
maybe.
Yeah, I
What's
feel
yours? What's yours?
well. I feel a bit the same actually, because I always kid myself that I could write about absolutely anything. But I think if I look at it a bit harder, there's a whole load of things that I'd feel on very dangerous terrain with actually.
Yeah,
And
I
also,
think
my agent tells me that I must never write about anyone who kills dogs, because then she'd have to fire me.
yeah, I think you can get away with anything except
You can
cruelty.
kill any human being you
Yeah,
like, but
don't kill
cruelty
the
to
dog.
animals.
No.
No. Oh, I'm not going to take up any more of your time tonight, Russ, but
Oh,
yeah, what an absolute pleasure. I hope we get to share a beer one day.
yeah, that would be
Congratulations to
fantastic.
you.
Thank you
Keep
very
going.
much.
I hope you do get to write 28 more books, because I'll be reading all of them.
Me too.
Well, we'll see.
Thank you, Kate, for joining us tonight.
Welcome.
Take care.
Mm.
Right, Russ, I've got another question for you. And basically, it's very selfish because Mina is my favourite character in the series.
Mhm.
How did you stumble upon Mina?
Yeah, lots of people love Mina, myself included. And that's exactly what happened. I stumbled across her. She just kind of turned up. Completely the opposite to Adam, who I had to fight tooth and nail to find and sort of unpick his character and work it out. Mina just turned up fully formed. I suppose that's not entirely true, because the role that she plays was played by a very different character originally in the very early drafts of Firewatching, and then then once I decided it was a police woman, the character I had didn't work, so I changed her character entirely. I definitely knew I wanted a woman, so to kind of be that yin yang opposite to Tyler. She I don't think I specifically made a point of choosing that she'd be Muslim, but once I realized she was an Asian character, it made sense for her to be Muslim, because there's a big Muslim population in Sheffield, and obviously that just gave her a different dimension, made her a bit different. But she just rocked up and started bossing people about, me included. And
I wonder if that's why I like her so much, because she's just bossy like me. But, I mean, I think with Tyler being gay and Mina being Muslim, those two characters really demonstrate the institutionalized sexism, racism, homophobia in the police in your story. I'm not saying it exists, although many people would say it exists in the real world, but it just gives you so many rich threads to explore, I felt.
Yeah, it's difficult because I think a lot of those stories have been told, but they are important stories and they still continue to be important. But I don't want to be, times do change and things are probably very different in the police now than they would have been in the 70s. Or just would have been so different, wouldn't it? But yeah, those things don't go away, and it's very easy to still be. In fact, in some ways, they change to a more subtle kind of that sort of prejudice. Now it's almost, because people know it's not okay to be openly prejudiced, then it all happens on a much sort of more insidious level. And
yes, that's definitely the word I thought.
Yeah. So it's interesting to explore that. I don't think none of that was particularly what I wanted to do as the mainstream of the book.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the stuff that they rub up against in their everyday life. And and they do complement each other really well, because they are so different to each other. They don't particularly get on all the time, and yet they do have this common bond in that they're outsiders and they have to fight to be heard a lot of the time. So
brilliant. Thank you. I'm gonna tell people about the competition now, just so that the reading is fairly fresh in their mind. So the lovely people at Simon & Schuster have offered to provide some book bundles to people who win this competition. So to be in with a chance of winning a book bundle, please email baytales20 susanelliotwright@gmail.com. Put Nighthawking in the subject line and answer this very, well, hopefully simple question. It'll be simple if you were paying attention. Whereabouts in Sheffield is the first body discovered in Nighthawking? Okay, so Nighthawking in the subject line, answer in the body of the email to that email address. Anyway, enough of that. On to our next special guest. James DeLargy was born and raised in Ireland and lived in South Africa, Australia and Scotland before ending up in semi-rural England where he now lives. He incorporates this diverse knowledge of towns, cities, landscape and culture picked up on his travels into his writing. His first novel, 55, was published in 2019 and has been sold to 21 territories to date. Vanished, which was out earlier this month, is his second novel. So we're really thrilled to welcome James DeLargy.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. If just before you start, quick aside for anyone watching, if you've not read 55 or Vanished, go out and do so immediately because they're both brilliant books.
Well, not immediately. Wait until the end.
Well, not
of this
immediately.
launch.
Yeah, no, maybe
Yeah.
late tomorrow.
Okay. Just congratulations on Nighthawking. I've read both, and considering how good Fire Watching was, to make your second novel even better is some accomplishment. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I have a quick question for you. Nice and simple. Nighthawking, unsurprisingly, involves the practice of nighthawking. Without incriminating yourself too much, please remember that this interview is being recorded. Have you ever been nighthawking?
No, I haven't. I've never even been metal detecting. So for those who don't know, because there may be some who've not read the book yet, but nighthawking is the practice of illegal metal detecting. So people go out on private land, dig things up, and then sell them on for their own profit. And that's kind of how the body's discovered in the book. So no, I've never ever been metal detecting. I read quite a bit about it for the sake of the book, but I'd love to have a go. Yeah, I think that would be fun. But legally, obviously, because you're not allowed. I know lots of things about the Treasure Act of 1996 or whenever it was. I don't know when it was, but yeah. So you're allowed to go out digging, but you have to have permission if it's on private land. And even if it's not on private land, if you discover more than one coin, that's classed as treasure, and you have to declare it to the coroner. Otherwise, you can be arrested for illegal doings.
And so ends the public service announcement by Russ Termos.
I feel, James, that he's skirting around this because he knows the interview's being recorded and he doesn't want to incriminate himself.
And that's all I'm saying, my lord.
Yeah. No comment. That's the phrase. You just need to know. No comment.
I should have quit while I was there. That would be a very boring hour of entertainment, though, wouldn't it? If I just said no comment to every question.
Well, it would keep it interesting, mysterious,
Enigmatic.
Mm.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, James.
No problem. And again, congratulations on Nighthawking.
Thanks.
Fantastic novel. See you later.
Right. I'm going to go into your third guest because we've got tons of questions from our audience this evening and I would like to get as many of those answered as possible. So,
I'm going to wet the whistle. Cheers, everyone.
Yeah, cheers. I was going to wait till the end, but Russ, here's to Nighthawking. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So,
come on, bring on the next guest.
Bring her on. Susan Elliott-Wright is the best-selling author of 4 novels, most recently The Flight of Cornelia Blackwood, published by Simon & Schuster. She lives in Sheffield, where she teaches creative writing and also mentors new writers. Susan is currently working on her 5th novel. So huge round of applause, everybody, for Susan Elliott-Wright. Hello.
Ooh.
Hi there, hello.
Hey. Thank you for coming, and your
It's my
office looks as
pleasure.
gorgeous as it always does.
It's my pleasure. I was going to say just before, actually, I was going to say, you better, your bubbles are getting warm in the background there. You better have a drink. What's that sitting there?
Well, yeah, it was calling out to me. I think I heard a bubble pop or something.
Quite right too. Anyway, first of all, congratulations on Night Hawking. It's an absolutely fantastic novel, as was Firewatching, but this is a real cracker. I absolutely love it. So what I wanted to ask you was, obviously, I live in Sheffield too, so as a fellow Sheffield author, I was very interested in the stuff you did, the sense of place, the stuff you did around Sheffield. So particularly, obviously, the botanical gardens where the first body's found, but also I was really interested in the Sheffield University stuff, the Controlled Environment Centre, where all sorts of weird and wonderful things go on. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about just how you researched you live in Sheffield, how did you research the sense of place and make that so real and vivid for readers?
Yeah, I suppose to begin with, I found it quite difficult to write about Sheffield because I know it so well, and I was forcing myself to go out and find places and discover them for the first book and taking a notebook and taking pictures and things. For the second book, I then had to think, right, now let's find some places I don't know and kind of do something a bit different and try and find some things that I think might interest people. And I'm very lucky to have a good friend who works at the university, Dunk, who may or may not be in the audience. I don't know, I've not seen his name come up. And he knows everyone in Sheffield. So he introduced me to various people, but one of them was a lady who runs, or at the time, and I think she may have moved on now, but at the time she ran the botanical gardens or was involved with that. And she very kindly showed me around, pointed out various places that would be good to hide a body if you were going to, which I thought was a little bit worrying. But yeah, they were so friendly, because I was a bit nervous that when I turned up and said, I'm thinking of killing someone and having them found in your gardens. And yet they were all so up for it, and the volunteers were lovely. I met many of the volunteers and they were like, oh yeah, that'd be great. Oh yeah, it might get more people coming in to visit the gardens. So that was good. And then Dunk himself showed me around the Controlled Environment Centre, which I knew nothing about before, and very few people I think know about it. It's basically a giant laboratory underneath the car park in Sheffield. At Sheffield University, there's a car park, and this all goes on out of sight. And they basically have big units that are like fridge freezers, like giant walk-in fridge freezers, but they don't necessarily just do cold. They can have any environment they want throughout the world. So they can make it like the Sahara or I don't know, the Arctic, and then they can grow plants and see how plants grow under certain lighting conditions and heating conditions and stuff like that. It's really cutting edge stuff and
amazing.
Just fascinating. As soon as he showed me it, I hadn't planned on putting it in the book at all, but I thought, this has got to go in.
That's got to go in.
It's so there's so much in Sheffield, and the more you look, the more you find. And you know this from your own research. So.
It's a great place. Well, you've done such a great job of it. It really, I mean, obviously, say I recognise places, but I think even people who've never been here will want to come here now and go and look for bodies in the gardens. Yeah. Hopefully, you won't find any. Hopefully not. Well done again, and congratulations again. It's fantastic. It will fly.
Thank you for coming. Cheers. Thanks.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us, Susan.
Pleasure.
Okay, we have got plenty of questions rolling in, but there is still time for others in the audience if you have questions for Mr. Thomas. So I have had a couple of people ask Russ, how, if at all, has COVID and the pandemic impacted your writing process?
Yeah, massively so. I probably shouldn't say that, but it has. I find it very difficult. I found it very difficult when we were kind of locked in, just to sit and work, and I shouldn't have done. I feel like I should have been even more productive, but I just didn't find that I have the headspace for it. I usually do a lot of my work out in coffee shops and places. Couldn't do that anymore. So yeah, I'm not saying I had the worst lockdown. I'm sure there were people who were far worse off than I was, but it was difficult. I wasn't as productive as I would have hoped to have been, or thought I would. But most of Nighthawking was written during lockdown, or certainly the editing process was all done during the lockdown bit. So yeah, I did manage it, but I hope that I don't have to do it again. Let's hope none of us have to do that again.
We're all hoping that, I think.
Yeah.
Keith Young would like initially to compliment you on your wonderful reading and say he's looking forward to the book. How long do you think about the story, the plot, the characters before you put pen to paper?
With this one, I didn't have a great deal of time to, because the first one I wrote over the course of about 10 years on and off, whereas this one I had a year to deliver it, really. But I try and plot out, like, so for this one I did pretty much plot out what I wanted to happen in it all the way through, but a very rough idea, and not in any great detail. And then it changed massively as I went on. I usually get about a quarter, the third of the way through, and then things start happening I didn't expect to happen, and it goes a slightly different way. That certainly happened with this book. There's a character in it who I knew I wanted in it, and I knew was important, but I didn't really know what they did, and I was struggling and couldn't think of a reason really for him to carry on in the story. And then he revealed something to me I didn't know he was going to reveal, and from that point I thought, yeah, that's it, and it kind of changed. But all that happened long after I'd started writing. So yeah, I try and plan out as much as possible, but I think you have to be open to surprises along the way, and that's what keeps it interesting for me writing it. If I planned every little detail out, I wouldn't be interested in writing it anymore.
Yeah, certainly. I've had a couple of people asking about book number 3. Is there going to be one? When can we have it? Can you tell us anything about it?
I can't say very much at all, because I've been told not to, but there will be some news announced very shortly, perhaps even as early as next week. I'm not sure, but so yeah, hopefully that answers at least part of that question.
Very exciting, thank you. Yes, I think that does deserve a ooh. Megan Such would like to know, when you were writing Firewatching, did you know straight away which characters you would like to bring forward into the new books as well as Tyler?
Hi Megan. Yes, I did. I knew obviously that Tyler and Rabani were back. Mina took on a much bigger role in this book than I'd intended, but I think like Vic, I like her a lot, and so she kind of took over a bit. And also Tyler is very distracted in this book, even more so than the first one, because he has a whole other thing he wants to investigate that's not the main crime. Yeah, so she ends up with the lion's share of the work to do. Doggett I definitely wanted to bring back, but because Mina took over a lot of the storyline, that left less room for him. So he is in this one, but not quite as at the forefront of the story. Jordan as well, I knew was coming back. Daly I didn't know was coming back, but then he did, so that was good. And then I knew the sort of the non-police characters from the first were going to play a part. So yeah, all the police are back, but there are other new characters as well.
Excellent, thank you. Andrew Wheeler would like to know if Firewatching and or Nighthawking are going to be made into films and or TV series.
Not that I know of, but yeah, I hope so. Yeah, no plans as yet.
We've got a follow-on from Rob Parker, and this was actually one of my reserve questions. So Rob Parker says, whenever I read about Tyler, I see Russ playing him. Same. But who, Russ, do you think of when you think of Tyler?
I'm not going to answer that because I never do. I get asked this quite a lot. I'm not going to say because I have a very clear idea of what Tyler is like in my head, but I don't really want to put that. I very rarely, I don't describe him at all, really.
You don't?
Other than the fact he has a scar. And that's very deliberate because I want you guys to be able to imagine him as you do. So I don't know. I also maybe don't know enough about who's current and who's of the right age, and I'm far too old to be Tyler now. And also I can't act for toffee. That was discovered at university. Yes, it definitely won't be me. Who knows? I'll be very happy if it gets turned into an adaptation, and I'm sure they'll know someone who's perfect. Who do you think? Let's turn it back on Rob and you.
Yeah, Rob. Yeah, Rob. You answer the question, Rob, not me. Amy, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your surname. Beeshell? Beshel?
Yes, Beshel.
Beshel. Okay, we'll go with that. Did your writing process change when writing Nighthawking, having already published Firewatching, and obviously being on a much smaller time scale to deliver?
Yeah, it was definitely more organised than the first one. Oh, sorry, my TV's talking to me for some reason. Come on, that's never happened before. Sorry. Yeah.
How embarrassing.
Yeah, thanks for that. What was the question again? Yeah,
your writing changing.
It was definitely more organised. I planned a lot more than I did for the first one, even though that plan didn't work out fully, but it definitely was more planned. I think for Nighthawking as well, I pretty much wrote it all in one draft before I started redrafting, whereas Firewatching, because I started writing it when I was doing an MA, I had to kind of write 10,000 words and then hone it and hand it in and then doing 40,000 words and do that and keep redoing it. So it was much more get to the end and then go back. And of course my agent and editor also helped after that first draft was done and came in and went, get rid of that, put this in, this would be great, which you know is what they're for and brilliant at. So yeah, it was much more collaborative, I suppose, although that process also did happen in the first one as well.
Further down the line, I guess. So we've had a lot of people wanting Andrew Scott for Tyler. I'd go with that. But
do I know who's Andrew Scott? Do I know
the hot priest from Fleabag and Moriarty?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure. That'll do me. Yeah,
we'll all be on board with that, I think. And personally, I can't think of anyone for. I'll go with Andrew Scott for sure. But I have in my mind when I read about Rabani, Lena Kaur, who was in Hollyoaks. This is really sad. She was in Justin's House, which is a children's TV program. But honestly, when I read about Lena Kaur is who I see. So if it happens, Russ, make it so.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. How about is it Mr. Tumble then for Doggett or something? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I don't know any other characters from.
Yes, we'll go with. She does play Mac the Explorer, Danny Marshall. Thank you very much for knowing this and backing me up on that.
So I'm going to be Googling that in a minute. No, I shouldn't have said that. She's going to start up again.
Oh no. So, what was I going to say to you? Yes, Simon has weighed in with Alexa, who should play my character on TV. And I think, yes, whatever Alexa or Google says. Yeah, go with it. Andrew Scott. Anyway. Meg Such, this is a really lovely question. I don't know why I really love this one, but I think you'll appreciate it as well as former bookseller. What are some of the reads that have gotten you through lockdown?
Ooh, I've mostly watched TV, to be honest.
How
No,
dare you
I've
trade
been
us?
revisiting. I've been revisiting the Terry Pratchett books, the Discworld novels, which I hadn't read for years, and I've been thoroughly enjoying that. It's good comfort reading for lockdown. I could highly recommend. Also did the same with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, which again, you wouldn't think that a story about the end of the world would have been the most comforting thing to read during a pandemic, but it worked. So yeah. And I recently read a brilliant book as part of my book group called Thousand Ships by Natalie Haynes, which is a sort of retelling of the Greek myths, but from very much from a female perspective. So it's presenting all the characters you only hear briefly about, the wives and the sacrificed daughters and all those people. They're telling their story. So that was cracking. I really enjoyed that, and it's got me on a myths thing. I've bought Ariadne, which came out today, which is by Jennifer Saint. So yeah, we share a thing. That's another one in that kind of similar idea, I think, sort of retelling of Greek myths. Maybe I just revisit all the classics when I'm not classic, not boring classics.
Yeah, modern classics. I think Natalie Haynes also wrote, I think it was called The Amber Fury, which was basically a Greek tragedy set in a school.
Oh yeah, I've not read that.
I've got it on my shelf to read, but I've had it there for several years. So, but I would really like to read it.
You'll get there eventually.
One day.
And you're not busy reading books for this.
Effie Merrill would like to know, if you didn't write crime, what would you write?
Probably sci-fi or fantasy, maybe horror. I'm currently reading Rob Barker's Blackstoke, which I know you've read, Vic. It's just brilliant. I'm loving it hard. But I gather I've not got to the juiciest bits yet.
I was just going to ask you, do you know roughly where you are at in the book?
Nothing massively weird has happened yet, shall we say. So where I was going with this is that it's horror, but it's what he's doing brilliantly is he's presenting what is obviously there's a heightened fantasy element to it, but the real horror is these people living in this suburban area, and it's the everyday horror of it that's just brilliant. I love it.
Excellent. And just as
horror, sci-fi, fantasy, probably something like that.
Excellent. I don't know why I didn't have you nailed down for that at all, but that is very interesting.
Well, I read a lot of fantasy when I was younger. I grew up watching Doctor Who, loved Doctor Who, so anything space, anything swords and sorcery, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've written fantasy before, just not published yet.
And is it true that Doggett is named after a character in the X-Files?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I thought Mulder was a bit too on the nose, so.
Quite. That's very fair. Moving on, Fiona Gardner would like to know, what is a typical writing day like for you, Russ? Now we can look at now or pre-pandemic or just whenever.
I tend to get up early if I can and write as soon as, certainly the last couple of weeks, now that deadline's growing ever closer and I'm writing a lot, I'm getting up very, very early, writing first thing before I do anything else. Well, I have a coffee and a glass of water, and I sit and just try and get as many words down as possible. And that's when I'm at my absolute most productive for new writing. And then I'll go off and do something else, probably read for a bit, and then come back to it and do editing or do all those boring little admin tasks and research and stuff like that. So that tends to be the stuff I do later. And if I can knock off about 3 o'clock for the afternoon quizzes, then that's pretty good. Yeah.
Perfect. I fully endorse that. Jonathan Whitelaw would like to know, what is the part of writing that you struggle with the most?
Oh, hey, Jonathan. Starting, I would say. Yeah, that's the hardest bit. And I don't just even mean starting the book or the project, but just sitting down every day and starting. It's why I have to get up early and do it first before I do anything else. Because if I do even one thing, then that's me procrastinating for the rest of the day. So yeah, it's the hardest bit. I love the editing process. I don't like, I don't like getting it down. I don't like getting the first draft down. But I love going back and moving stuff around and playing with the words and trying to make it.
That's really interesting. Danny Marshall would like to know, what's your go-to writing snack or treat if you hit your word target?
Cheese. I'm going to say cheese just to upset him because I know he loves cheese. I don't know. I eat a fair bit, but I tend to go and eat properly. Coffee, I suppose, is my main snack. Like, yeah, that's a good excuse to get up. And I might have a biscuit with my coffee. But
kind of biscuit, though. I think these are the important details.
Yeah, I know,
That's
but
definitely what they've tuned in for.
I tend to get like posh ones from Marks and Spencer's with the big chocolate chips in.
Oh yeah.
They don't last very long, so try not to do that too often.
That's very fair. Somebody who hasn't left their name, which is totally fine, says, have you stumbled upon or purposely sought out groups that partake in legal metal detection to research the subject matter more? If so, what was that like?
No, I didn't. So I basically did all my research for that online. Didn't reach out to anyone. I mean, I often leave the research till the later stages, and so once lockdown hit, that made it almost impossible other than to do research online. I was lucky really that I had done the location research earlier in the process, almost as though I knew. Yeah, because that's not what I would normally do, but yeah. So no, sorry, can't tell you any fascinating stories about metal detectorists other than what I've read online.
I did see a chap on the beach when I was on the beach on Friday doing some metal detecting, and I immediately thought of you in a lovely way. And my friend said, oh, what do you think he's doing? I said, metal detecting. She went, yeah, but why?
Did you mention my book? Did you go and try and...
No, I had to socially distance. I'm sorry.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes. And with that in mind, another anonymous or possibly the same attendee would like to know, do you have any in-person events lined up this year that we can attend?
I have one lined up, which is the Derby Festival, which is currently scheduled for the 31st of May. But whether or not that actually goes ahead in person, we're not sure about. And I think that kind of the interaction will, if it does go ahead, this sort of personal interaction will be limited. Certainly there'll be screens and things. But I hope it does, because it would just be great to go out and see people. But that's the only thing I've got lined up. So 31st of May. And if it doesn't go ahead, it will go ahead on Zoom, so or a similar platform. Other platforms are available, apparently.
Nicely done.
Why?
I know that...
Not like we're on the BBC. I don't know.
I did nearly say to somebody today, I can't attend your thing because I'm doing Russ's book launch on a different channel, and then realised I'm not on the telly.
Just wishful thinking.
I know that you mentioned Lee Child and Jack Reacher at the beginning of the show. Are there any other authors who inspired you to become a writer, who that you thought, yeah, I'd really like to do that, or any that you'd like to slag off and just say I met them, they were awful?
No, I don't want to do that. I guess growing up, it was Terry Pratchett and Stephen King were the big sort of influences in my life, but also David Eddings and then a bit later on Robert Jordan, so the sort of big fantasy writers. Yeah, that's what I wanted to tell. I was saying to Simon earlier, because he was asking me about writing a series of books, and I said I think I just love telling long, epic, complicated stories. unfortunately, because it would be easier for me if I did tell things that are a bit simpler. But so yeah, I'm not very good. I don't think I'm very good at ending things. I always want to carry them on and kind of come back to things and see what they are like later down the line. So that's why I guess a series works for me.
I don't think we'd have it any other way. It's just such a strong series, and as you've seen in my review today, I think actually Nighthawking, against all odds, is actually even better, even stronger than Firewatching, which was a bloody good start. So yeah.
That is lovely to hear, because it's so nerve-wracking. It's equally as nerve-wracking as my first book, but for very different reasons. The first one, obviously, I was really worried people would like it. Second one, I'm really worried that people won't like it as much as the first one.
Well, I mean, I'm just one person, but certainly just one. Yeah, that's my take on it. Yeah, okay, so we know you used to be a bookseller. Can you reveal to us the strangest thing you've ever been asked by a customer in the bookshop?
Yeah, and it doesn't sound as strange anymore, because bookshops, like most shops, have had to start branching out and other things. But this was way back in the day when literally all we sold were books, and we used to get people coming and ask for things all the time that were just. So I've been asked for plugs, so just like plugs to go in the wall. Not even an adapter. They wanted a plug to put on a wire to wire their kettle up or something.
Okay.
He said, "What, you know, plugs? Do you sell them? Do you sell them?" And just saying, "No, it's a bookshop." And just I couldn't get my head around why they were asking me. I used to work in a specialist motoring bookshop, and someone once came in and asked for a workshop manual for a Renault Clio. It took me ages to realise he meant a Renault Clio, but it took me far longer than it should have done, considering we were in a motoring bookshop. But so that was a bit of it. Ice cream, we used to get asked for ice cream quite a lot.
I know that you prefaced this by saying, you know, bookshops have diversified, but still none of these things seem okay to ask for in a bookshop even now. Ice cream in a book, I mean, I would love it, and obviously some of them do have cafes now, but yeah,
I've had to clear up a fair number of dirty protests in my time as well, but I think that's in all shops. It happens. So usually kids, not really proper dirty protests. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I also used to work in Warner Brothers studio stores, and they used to, I don't know if you remember them. Yeah, they used to have a rocket, Marvin the Martian's rocket ship was at the back, and it had little screens in. I would never have gone in those rockets. They were never 100% clean. Sorry to disappoint you.
Well, I mean, I was sad that they'd disappeared, but now not so much. And Amy Beschel, I'm so sorry, Amy, I'm so sorry. As a bookseller, what was the book you recommended the most?
The Night Circus, I think, probably, because it's such a brilliant book, and it's the sort of book you can recommend to most people, and they'll enjoy it. So there are some books I would only recommend to certain people, or I'd always ask, you know, what are you looking for, what sort of thing. But that one I probably recommend it more than any other.
Excellent. And Megan Such has sort of looped back to when you said that you'd watched a lot of TV in lockdown. And she says, was there anything you watched while writing Nighthawking that gave you some inspiration?
No, I tend to try and watch things that aren't what I'm writing. So, for example, I've not watched Line of Duty recently because I didn't want it to affect what I was writing, because we're treading similar ground in places. I mostly watch Supernatural from beginning to end, because it's so ludicrous and different to what I'm doing. But kind of works.
Excellent. Okay, well, we've got one last question. People are getting in late. Amy says you watch Love Island. Is this true?
No. I can honestly say I've never watched a single episode of Love Island ever.
Not even the celebrity one in 2005?
Not even that, whatever that was.
And Megan would also like to know which shows did help you through lockdown.
Yeah, Supernatural. I've been watching a lot of Bones recently.
Is that
based
with
on the Kathy Wright's books?
David Boreanaz? Or
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah, as long as there's a good-looking main character, I'm hooked. So.
I'm with you, and that's why we're friends.
Oh, and Schitt's Creek, of course. That got me through the early part of lockdown because I came to that quite late, I think, and I've just started watching that again. That's my kind of while I'm eating.
Everybody needs a show, I think, where, unlike Line of Duty, where you can actually look at your phone and do some other things.
Yeah.
Right, we have finished the cues. All the cues have gone. So it just leaves me to tell those of you watching that Russ has a short story on baytales.com. All of our content is now free, so please do pop in and check. And also probably later tomorrow, or certainly by the weekend, if you have any friends who've missed the event, this very video will be uploaded onto there. So please do check that out. I would like to thank Simon Buick behind the scenes for keeping all the balls in the air, James DeLargy, Kate Rhodes and Susan Elliott Wright for appearing with us to celebrate Russ's launch, and a huge congratulations to the wonderful Russ Thomas. May Nighthawking fly off the shelves.
Let's hope so.
Yes, I'm sure it will, Russ. It absolutely deserves to. Many
Please,
congratulations.
big thank you to you and Simon as well. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Cheers, my dear. Yeah.